not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
All right, we've slept on it. We've thought about game 2 last night. We've dissected it, and we bring to you our weekly hottest Wolves takes episode of Flagrant Howls. We got the sports dad Judd in the house. We got our guy Declan, producer Declan. I am Phil, and we'll dish these hottest Wolves takes here as the series comes to Minnesota on Friday night. After we shout out Neos Elite Performance, a new partner across Score North podcast, helping people out, Judd.
Yep, absolutely. And so if you were, let's just say, an athlete in high school or college, right? And you hurt your knee
What
or
if you play
your
for the
back.
Lakers right now?
Well, then you know what? If you are Luka, definitely consult with the expert at Neos Elite Performance, because if chronic pain is slowing you down, their cutting-edge regenerative medicine and cellular IV therapy is designed to get you going again. And here's the most important thing: no invasive procedures. This is white glove service delivered to your home. No trips to the doctors. You don't have to be concerned about that, because the experts at Neos are going to come to you. So if you're being slowed by knee or back pain, stop your suffering. Neos' therapies are designed to reduce pain, restore function, and get you back to doing what you love. In other words, get you back on the golf course, on the court, help you regain that athletic edge that might have left. No surgery, no downtime. When we're talking about Neos, it's just results. So schedule now at neoselite.com. That's Neos elite.com. A lot of good stuff on their site as well about exactly what they're doing. Again, cutting edge stuff that's going to get you back and active like you want to be. Neoselite.com. Check them.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're coming off the bench and you were a minus 17 last night, you want to get back to that peak athletic performance, maybe between games 2 and 3.
Luka might
help you out.
I mean, that guy's knees are going to hurt at some point in time.
Why is he always bleeding? Like his knee, you ever notice that? For years and years, he wears the white knee sleeves,
blood on it.
And there's always blood coming through. Is that there's been some speculation that's like, does he get like shots or something? Or is it just he has a scrape that hasn't healed in 5 years?
Or has he gone full Kurt Schilling?
He's trying to make it. Yeah,
and he wants to look like he's a grinder.
That's right.
If anyone is not a grinder, it's him. But what if he wants to look like he's a grinder? I hit the floor so much, my knees are perpetually bleeding.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's like a Reddit deep dive on why Luka is just always bleeding all over the place. But okay, I gave you just kind of a solo immediate reaction episode last night, and thanks for people hanging out after midnight. Just kind of off the top of the head notes that I was taking during the game. But after sleeping on it last night, Positive Phil has woken up with the sun rising and shining here in the Twin Cities. And my hottest take for you guys is, I told you Wolves in 6 or fewer to start the series. And my hottest take is, after game 2, Positive Phil is even more confident in Wolves or in 6 or fewer. I know they lost. I know they only scored, 85 points in that loss last night, which, by the way, is only the 5th time all year the Wolves have scored fewer than 100 points. It's the first time they've scored fewer than 90 points. The other 4 sub-100 offensive performances were all in November and December when they were trying to figure out DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, how do these guys fit in? The offense was super clunky early in the year. So it was kind of a shock in that way, because they've always found a way to get over 100 points, and they've actually been one of the better offensive teams in the league since the early part of January. But if I'm the Lakers going to bed last night, super happy that the series is even. That's great. You're not in an 0-2 hole going back to Minnesota, but I would have a really ominous feeling about not being able to score 100 points against this Wolves defense. You jumped out to a 20-point lead, arena rocking, momentum, energy, everything flowing. Anthony Edwards grabbing his shoulder. And that game was a grind to win it. The Wolves kept coming at you despite making 0 shots for 2.5 hours.
Yep.
The fact that the Lakers had trouble and it never got like super close, but the fact that they had to play their starters all the way through the end to close out that game is a bad sign for them. They can't score, they might at some point in the series, but they're having a hard time scoring 100 points. So if the Wolves can just find a way to not have, one of their worst shooting performances, and the Lakers did some things. They crowded shooters. They brought defensive energy. They picked up ball handlers before half court. So yeah, they definitely tweaked their energy. Yep. But of the 8 quarters played in this series, the Lakers have dominated 2 of them. The first quarter of game 1 and the first quarter of game 2. Mm-hmm. The other 6 quarters, the Wolves have either won in dominating fashion or in some fashion, or in the case of like the third quarter, they kind of broke even in the third quarter yesterday. So series is even, but the Wolves have home court advantage. The Lakers have not figured out how to unlock their offense. And the Wolves are going to settle in somewhere between making 50% of their threes and basically none of their threes.
Right.
And when that happens, I think the Lakers are going to be in for a problem the rest of this series. So Positive Phil is even more confident in Wolves in 6 or fewer.
I thought Positive Phil was far more on drugs last year against the Nuggets when I believe, if I am correct, that the Wolves were down 3-1 at
3-2
point. 3-2. Well, you predicted at some point in time that the Wolves were going to come back and win, and I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm in lockstep. Like here's the Lakers' problem. One is I still maintain they're not that deep. Like they played better, but it's not like all of these guys unleashed this great game. But the other thing is the Lakers have a very tough decision to make. Do we want this smoke? Like the Wolves are literally grinding your ass down every game. And I'll say this too. I don't know that this is a hot take, but I will say this too. As far as the playoffs go, and I know we did a great job defensively last year, so I'm not even taking away from that. This roster is a far better playoff roster than one with Cat. Because game 1, you shot incredibly well. Not going to keep up. Game 2, incredibly poorly. Also, conversely, not going to keep up. But what's the one constant? The one constant that you know that you're going to get is a team that's going to grind on you. And when you've got Carl, and the Knicks saw this, right? Great game 1, disappearing act game 2.
Yeah.
That becomes a real problem because then you don't know what you are going to get. I don't know that there is anyone. I'm not saying there's no one on the Wolves that can have a bad game because some guys did. But I don't know that people came away from last night's game questioning like effort.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, that I agree on that. I think energy in the first quarter was, I don't know if they just didn't anticipate somehow the Lakers throwing their punches. And
I was going to say the Lakers punch too.
I think the biggest thing the Lakers did was, we can talk about the lack of 3-point makes for the Wolves. They were 5 of 25. They shot 20% from 3-point range. But to me, the biggest thing was they only attempted 25 threes. They're averaging like 40 attempts a game this season.
Right.
They launched 42 of them in game 1 and hit 21 of them. So sometimes great 3-point defense isn't creating a lower percentage of makes. It's literally preventing you from taking threes.
Right.
And that was like early in the game, that was the biggest thing to me. The Lakers were just, they were physical. They were crowding the Wolves. But the Wolves, if this is who can out physical the other team.
Yep. And
sometimes that leads to a foul fest and foul trouble. Well, last night, as the Lakers whittled their rotation down even further, like I know that they wound up playing, they played an extra guy last night because they put Jordan Goodwin on the court for like 6 or 7 minutes. But so they played 9 guys, but you had Austin Reeves playing 42 minutes, Luka playing 42, LeBron playing 40, Rui Hachimura playing 34, Dorian Finney-Smith played 39 minutes off the bench. Gabe Vincent played 19. The other 3 guys played 9 minutes or fewer. So they just put guys out there for a little stretch or two.
Right.
I think it becomes more. And by the way, Terrence Shannon Jr. came in for the Wolves as a 9th guy, and they had a great run. I argue they should have put him back in the second half. They were a +7 in those 7 minutes. They haven't used Jalen Clark yet.
Yeah.
So they've got some useful levers they could pull if they need to. And my grand point here is the Lakers are super thin in this series. The Wolves probably go 9 or 10 deep if they want to play Clark at some point. And I just believe that depth and that toughness And that wave that comes at you, even if you're down in the first quarter for 48 minutes, is going to win out at the end of a 7-game series.
Yep. And especially because the Wolves' intention is to beat you up. So, like, you literally have to decide, do I want this? And I would argue that there are certain guys on that team who are going to say, it's really not our season. And I'm talking about the Lakers, of course. So, and if you guys recall, halfway through the season, one of our biggest gripes was effort. It's like it was very inconsistent. But I feel like now that there is a clear-cut identity, it doesn't mean that you're going to play perfect. But the Lakers' kryptonite is probably pushing them as hard as possible. And it feels like, because after the first quarter last night, you could have gone away.
Yeah, it would have been easy.
Like,
yeah. We already got ours.
Screw it. You know, it's not our night. We're not shooting particularly well. And they didn't. And I respect that. And I think I bet the Lakers got to the locker room post-game and took a deep breath and said, that was way tougher than it should have been.
Dude, if you guys get a chance, go watch even like a minute of JJ Redick's post-game press conference. He was very solemn, very serious. And some of that's just he's dialed in for the playoffs. But I also think he comes away thinking, wow, that was... If you kind of add those first 2 games up, yeah, credit to our guys for holding the Wolves to 85 points and bringing the energy, but this is hard, and it's going to get harder going to Target Center. You know, I'm kind of just reading body language on that, but yeah, it is. Yeah, I think you feel better as a fan if maybe you flip-flop it, and the first game you shoot poorly and you lose, and then the second game you put it on them, and now you feel great going back to Target Center. But the Wolves should feel good overall about where this series is at going back to that arena. All right, Dex, what is your hottest Wolves take?
So, yeah, a lot of good things, even with the split in L.A. But here's my hottest take, because I don't think we've really seen it yet in games 1 and 2. And even though he hasn't played poorly, obviously, in games 1 or 2, I think it's time. And this is a big statement. So my hottest take is if Anthony Edwards doesn't take over game 3, I'm not even going to use game 4, game 3, I think the Wolves are going to lose this series. You saw game 2 on the start with Luka and LeBron getting off to this hot start, right? They're making everything. I know it's annoying seeing Luka go to the line so much, but he's 11 for 11 from free throw attempts. Those 2 guys counterpunched back, right? We asked that question going into the game on yesterday's Flagrant Howls of, can the Wolves withstand a Luka LeBron counterpunch? And Ant, through the first 2 games, for sure has been solid. 25 points, 22 points in games 2 and 1. He shot 22 times in both games so far from the field. But we have yet to see the Hulk up Ant moment from this series. And I think this is the perfect thing going into game 3, setting the tone. And if he can do that, I think the Timberwolves, with a big Anthony Edwards game 3 solidified 40-point-like game where he's just dunking all over the place. We saw the highlight reel dunk last night, which was also awesome. That was sweet. But we have yet to see the Anthony Edwards, I'm going to take things over. I'm the best player on the court in this series. Can he do that? So my hottest take is if Anthony Edwards can't take over game 3, I think the momentum just goes to the Lakers. So it's a big game 3. It's not a pivotal game. It's not a deciding game, I should say. Obviously, the series is tied 1-1. But we need to see an Anthony Edwards crowning playoff moment, and it starts in game 3.
You know what's interesting about games 1 and 2 is in game 1, Luka got some offense, but the Wolves kind of shut down the playmaking. And the Lakers missed some shots too, but he only had the 1 assist, and the Lakers got smoked. Because playmaker Luka was just not on his A game. And then in game 2, and by the way, Ant was dishing all over the place. And it helps when guys are making the open threes. Obviously, like you get an assist when they make a shot, and that was a big difference. But then in game 2, playmaker Luka was everywhere. That little no-look dish in the paint. He's at one point, he's calling for the Wolves bench to sub out Rudy, and we'll get to a note on that. And so like he was making plays all over the place, little drop passes and finding open teammates outside the arc. And it was Anthony Edwards who wound up with 0 assists. Now, he would have had a few if teammates made some 3-pointers.
Right.
But they kind of took him out. Now, in the first quarter, too, he ran into a hard screen, and he like jammed his shoulder or something. He had ice on his shoulder in the post game, too. And he was very tentative the rest of the first quarter, and it was a big part of the reason I think why the Lakers built such a big lead. And then gradually throughout the rest of the game, the shoulders started to either feel better or he just played through it, and then the real Anthony Edwards kind of showed up, but it was too little too late. So I think part of the moral of the story is here, it's not just can he drop 40 in game 3, it's can he unlock his teammates a little more often like in game 1, and can those teammates hit open shots or at least create some open shots as they move the ball around. So, yeah, I think I agree with this. If Playmaker Ant and Hulk Ant doesn't show up, they probably lose the game. If he doesn't show up in the series, they probably I think winning the series is predicated on Ant being like the second best player in the series.
Right. Yeah. And the Wolves obviously have the deeper team than the Lakers do. And it's great that you can, facilitate and do all that stuff. And that's a luxury for the Wolves that they have. But if Ant, we've seen the playoff moments from Ant before, and the dunk obviously last night was like, oh my God, here we go. And things are going to start turning the tides a little bit, right? But I think if Ant shows up in the big way, whether it's dishing out or scoring 40, this game 3 is the perfect time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, complete Ant. That's what I need. I need complete
Ant-Man.
Ant.
That's right.
I need where on the national telecast that they're going on and on about his game, not Doncic's game, right? Like that's when you know. And that game exists. And game 1 I thought was really, really impressive. 9 assists.
It was a very measured, controlled performance by.
It was very
100%.
much what he had talked about in the week leading up to the series. And so yes, there definitely needs to be a return of that. But I think as disappointing as the shooting was last night, I think if you do take game 1 and 2 and just say, okay, what's the happy medium? Like what's the not phenomenal shooting, but also not putrid? I think you probably win game 3.
I guess. It kind of felt like the Lakers had to ramp up their defense to an unsustainable level throughout a 7-game series, whereas the Wolves defense and the net ratings would suggest this over 2 years too. The Wolves baseline defense is much better than the Lakers baseline defense, but the Lakers felt a desperation.
Right.
We can't fall down
right.
0-2 going out of our home arena in this one. So sustainability, I think it's a check for the Wolves. Hey, before you get to your hottest Wolves take here, let's go to one of the hottest restaurants in the North Loop, Minneapolis, Butcher and the Boar, Judd.
Oh, you know what? In fact, I've got the perfect suggestion. If you're going to games 3 or 4 right downtown beforehand, I want you to stop in the North Loop, and I want you to enjoy the Butcher and the Boar as much as I do. Phenomenal place. We're talking Southern-style hospitality. We are talking fantastic food. We are talking the perfect place for, let's say, a date night as well. Butcher and the Boar, happy hour 4 to 6 every day. May I interest you in the Judd special, an ongoing special, which includes a beer brat, a shot for $15. That is that's a huge handmade beer brat with sauerkraut and mustard, any draft beer, any rail shot, only $15. Are you kidding me? It's 2025. Those prices don't exist, but they do here. And again, if you want to stop before game 3 and you said, you know what, let's go get something to eat beforehand, Butcher and the Boar, North Loop is the perfect place to stop. That's not a hot take. That's just a fact.
Wow. All right, give us a hot take now, if you could.
Okay. So I said about halfway through the year that we complained, I think, often about sort of the Wolves' game engagement. Sometimes they were engaged, sometimes they weren't. And I would argue that for the most part in these first 2 games, first quarters aside a little bit, though, the engagement has been very good, which is good because the approach calls for being engaged. It's not sexy. It's not pretty, quite frankly. It's a mucking style of basketball, but I think it works against the Lakers. So here's my hottest take. Sort of corrects something. I don't know if I was wrong, but I've changed my opinion based on his play. I think Julius Randle opts out of his contract, and I think he returns here. Now.
Wow.
And here's why I've changed it. If you look at the way that this is tracking, if you look at the identity of the Wolves right now and how they're trying to play, which is a form of very much old school Detroit Pistons. We're going to bully your ass. We're going to bully you. Bully ball.
They've got a toughness.
They've got a toughness.
Yeah.
Julius is the linchpin there. Ant brings the attitude, which is awesome. And he certainly brings the star caliber. But if you look at the approach, if you look at the guy that did not give up last night, if you look at the guy that just he keeps coming at you. He gets off the damn floor. You knock him down. You're like, okay, he's out. And he gets up. 8, 9, 10. And at 9, he gets up. It's Rocky. Julius has provided that. And now I am going on faith here because I am a little bit concerned that this is also a contractual thing. Like, I can opt out. I can get a multi-year contract. This is now a time to play my absolute most engaged. But he also is providing an identity that I think Chris Finch loves. I think we're now seeing why Chris Finch loved him. Like, because at first it's like, I don't understand this. But he's comfortable here now. So my hot take is I think Julius returns here on a new contract, which, yes, does leave open some questions about the future of Naz Reid, who I'm sure they want to keep badly in Minnesota.
Yeah. I kind of we've kind of covered this throughout the season, going back before the trade deadline, that it felt inevitable that Julius was just a passing piece of this trade and you were going to use him to spin him somewhere else for something else, something maybe a little bit younger, whatever, or that he was going to opt out and you were just going to kind of get below the second apron. That he was never really a long-term piece to this thing. But
absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, there was a point in that game where they're down by 20 points. It's the first half, and Anthony Edwards is grabbing his shoulder. Nobody can make a shot, and Julius clicks into, I'm just going to play 1-on-5 for like the next 10 possessions. And I'm just going to keep us on the board. I'm going to get to the free throw line. I'm going to get inside. I'm going to take a beating. He's bodying up LeBron James on defense too, and just trying to show a physical presence and make LeBron shoot long jumpers. So yeah, it's they were a -14 when he was on the court, but I don't know that it was like his presence that was the centerpiece of the -14, because it felt like he kept it from being like a 26 or a 30-point game for very, very key stretches, and then they got back into it a little bit in the second half. So yeah, he's become kind of a heart and soul guy of the personality of this team in some ways.
Yep.
And he's last night he took it into his own hands more often than he probably has since the trade deadline.
But he almost had to.
But he's a team ball guy now more than he's been at times in his career, and it's been fun to watch.
And I respected that, though, because I thought, like, there have been times, and there certainly were, especially before he got hurt, where he would try to control. He would take the ball and not play nice, and it's like, dude, this does not work. But last night I felt like some of the Wolves were a little bit shaken, and he's like, I'm not shaken at all. And he is specifically doing playoff type things that you'd need.
That was also, by the way, the best on paper playoff game of his entire career. 17 playoff games.
Yeah.
27 points was a career high. Basketball Reference has what's called a game score too, which is kind of just like it's an all-encompassing number that illustrates how impactful you were. This was the highest playoff game score he's had at any point in his career. It's the most minutes he's ever played, second most minutes of any playoff game. So yeah, and he's definitely heard that chatter that his postseason performance has been atrocious through the first decade of his career, and he wants to change that. But I don't get the sense, to your contract point, that he's thinking, I need to show out because I'm a free agent and want another $100 million.
Yep.
I genuinely think he enjoys being part of this team. He talked all week about wanting to win a championship and feels like this is his best shot. And he's been on some good Knicks teams and even a couple decent Lakers teams in his career. So can I before we wrap this episode here, I'd love to throw out, I don't know if it's like a hot take, but a Rudy-related nugget here.
Get him off the floor.
The national narrative and even the Lakers' offensive strategy narrative is so off base when it comes to Rudy Gobert. So the Lakers' offensive strategy for large chunks of last night's game was Luka gets the ball at the top of the key, and then they spam pick and roll for as long as it takes in the shot clock to get Rudy to switch on Luka. And then the crowd goes crazy. At times, Luka would get the switch, and he would amp up the crowd like a bullfighter in an arena to show, like, here it comes. I'm going to posterize this guy. I'm going to make him look like an ass. We're going to play him off the court. At one point, he did get one bucket on Rudy last night.
Yeah.
And he shouted to the Wolves bench, sub him out. And that was great. Like, that's the thing that gets spread around. Of course, the highlight that's not going to go viral is Rudy picking his pocket near half court and then going coast to coast for a reverse layup while Luka turns around and bitches at the refs. But I want to bring some hardcore facts and data to this conversation. So we talked before the series about how Rudy in isolation a year ago was in the 87th percentile among all defenders, wing players, guards, bigs. He was actually one of the better isolation defenders, points per possession in the league. This year, it was more league average. Eye test, I think he's been much better since the back injury. But last night, according to Synergy, well, in the series, so the first two games, according to Synergy, when guarded by Gobert in isolation, opposing scorers are shooting 41%, 5 of 12 from the field. And that's a lot of, like, he's forcing them into some long twos and some threes. And last night, according to NBA.com, Luka and LeBron combined to go 1 for 7 when Rudy was guarding them. 1 for 7 last night. I know the Lakers won.
Yeah, but
and you know, the arena was all excited every time Luka got the switch, Rudy on Luka.
Right.
But the data shows you that Rudy dominated those matchups defensively when he was asked to take those on, except for maybe like the one basket that Luka got to chirp at the Wolves bench while the cameras rolled in slow motion a million times.
Right.
Those are the facts.
Well, but here's what gets me. So I certainly do not consider myself Mr. NBA breakdown dude. I leave that for the experts like you and Dane Moore and Kyle. But can we go back to what we talked about before the series started that no one is pointing, or I feel like is not being talked about at all? All right. The highlight of Luka putting Gobert on skates at Target Center last year went viral because it was, oh my God, this is what happens, and it was a great shot. But the Lakers do not have, like, that series was made by Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford being inside because Gobert was in no man's land because he needed to drop back, right?
He's thinking about what's the pass.
What am I supposed to do? Yeah. But the point was, and Doncic benefited huge from this, is he has the ability, because he's really good at making plays then, to basically lure Gobert out. And if you go back and watch the clips, Luka made some nice shots. But the reality is the Mavericks won because Gobert ended up on skates in no man's land, while Lively or Gafford were basically getting easy dunks and layups. That's why they won the series. The Lakers don't have that. That's what I'm talking about. The Lakers, I think part of the reason why I think that Redick was a little bit, to your point, despondent last night was I think his adjustments largely worked, but they had to still hang on. I think he thought, oh, I'm going to make some adjustments. I'm going to outcoach Chris Finch, and we're going to win. And it's going to be decisive. And it should have been, and it wasn't. And I think that that's what scares him. But the whole Doncic Mavericks thing was based on the inside game because Gobert got caught in the middle. And so the Mavericks, I mean, Phil, we went to, what, 3 games? How many times did we talk about, or did we see live, one of those big men just standing there, basically unguardable because Gobert didn't know what to do because he had to make a choice. And you can't ignore Doncic.
Yeah, it is. That's the biggest difference between the Mavericks series and the Lakers series. You just nailed it, which is the Mavericks size made the Wolves uncomfortable, and the Lakers size actually kind of plays into giving the Wolves an advantage. They took full advantage in game 1. The one thing I would like to see from Rudy is grab more rebounds. The Lakers had so many extended possessions, offensive rebounds. Yeah. They had a pretty high offensive rebound rate in that game last night.
You're right.
So I'm not saying he's been perfect in the series, and they need to figure out ways with the size advantage to get him some more action at the rim, some lobs, some little, I don't know if it's just getting him involved in pick and roll more often. Now the Lakers are taking some of that stuff away because they know that the Wolves have a size advantage when Jackson Hayes isn't out there. But yeah, this just go back. Like there's a couple clips floating around Wolves Twitter of all of the isolation possessions that Rudy was involved with. He's literally running Luka into having to pass the ball or move off of his spots or not allowing him to get a shot off in most of them. Now, of course, Luka makes the right pass and somebody else knocks a shot down, and you always have to deal with that too. But it is the most overstated, ridiculous narrative that Luka's just embarrassing Rudy Gobert. The data shows that it's actually the other way around in this series so far. So, all right, dudes, I think we're having fun here. This is going to be awesome 2 games at Target Center this weekend.
Just one request: can we get Jalen Clark on the floor occasionally?
Well, Terrence Shannon Jr. was like above him in the pecking order last night, and it worked.
I just think that there are fouls to give there from him, and he is a Velcro defender.
I'd be curious to see it too. Finch talked a little bit last night after the game about Terrence Shannon Jr. I've wanted more Terrence Shannon Jr. all year too. I'm not saying it has to be one or the other, but
I'm not putting
that dude just brings like a bolt of energy. He's not at various points he was blanket guarding LeBron and Luka. He got called for 1 foul at the very end of a shot clock, but yeah, that's the thing. Like they haven't pulled the Jalen Clark lever yet. Right. And that's going to be there at some point, be it foul trouble or just needing to switch up your rotation.
I have never seen a guy drive to the basket with the reckless abandon and disregard for his own body as Terrence Shannon Jr.
It's great. Yeah.
Like he gives no thought to he might die.
No. Full speed into the stanchion. Yeah, it's going to be, just be careful out there. So, all right. Yeah, we're going to be definitely back for the Game 3 post-game live stream and likely another episode in between there somewhere, too. We got the Vikings draft is kind of consuming us on Purple Daily on Thursday and Friday, too. But, this is a series now. A lot to digest. We've already got tempers and emotions flowing after 2 games, so it's very heated. He's the sports dad. He's producer Dex. I am Phil. And this is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See ya.